Hey guys, welcome back to Russian Liberties Corpus YouTube channel, where we, Alexei Postnikov and Gala Bagatova, answering your questions about Russia and talk about Russian politics, Russian society, or anything else about Russia you might wonder. But today's video is in fact about your questions from the comment section, so please drop us more, ask us more, and we'll get to them as soon as possible. Maybe in the previous video answering the questions, we talked about inability of peaceful protesters to overthrow even authoritarian government, not even talking about totalitarian. To which we got, I would say, pretty much expectable comment, pretty short, which goes, "It was possible in Ukraine 2014.
These are two absolutely different countries
Yeah.
with different political regimes. Ukraine was torn with the competition between different parties. Yes, they were corrupted. Yes, they were not perfect whatsoever. Yes, the democracy is still young and shakeable. However, there was a competition. There was several pretty powerful blocs that were in conflict with each other.
I have a little test for you. How many presidents Ukraine had since starting the year 2000 till now? Five. How presidents Russia had starting 2000 till now? Let's not count Medvedev because it was a joke. So, one. In 2014, while people were protesting at Maidan in Kiev, there were people in parliament, their representatives, who were doing the same in the parliament. They were officially elected in the parliament. So people on the streets actually had a representative physically in the parliament. In Russia, people who were protesting on the streets were never allowed to have a representative because whoever would possibly could represent them, it was in the softer times, it was inability to participate in the elections because the government just wouldn't let them, and now it's immigration or jail. So I would say it's a little bit different. And if you want to compare Russia to any other neighboring country, let's compare it to Belarus. Way wider protests in Belarus in 2020 than it ever been in Russia, let's say per capita. I would say the considerable part of people in the country were protesting. And yet, who's the president of Belarus? Now, Lukashenko.
What do we have in the menu?
Okay, let's move. And basically, all our questions today are going to be, I would say, pretty frequent questions that I heard a lot over, especially in the past 14 months. Okay, let's move to this one. Hello, do you know Anna from Ukraine, quote unquote? She made a vlog about Navalny. She said that Navalny never condemned the war. If I understood her right, he talks about corruption in Russia, but he has no problem with Russian nationalism. Well, first of all, I don't know Anna from Ukraine, so yet the statement that Navalny do not care about the war is somewhat, it's appearing once in a while, and I think it's very important to address. First of all, Navalny is in Russian prison and he's there since 2021. So personally, I know you know what? Even personally, he made his speech, anti-war speech, on one of his trials as his final word. I'll look it up. I will try to find it in maybe with English subtitles, and I will attach it to, I will put the link in the description. In his posts, Instagram post, that's the only way of Navalny's communication with outer world through his lawyers, he condemned the war right after it started. He was calling out Russian people to resist and to protest in the first weeks until the big new Russian legislation that basically made, I would say, impossible to actually protest unless you want to face up to 10, 15 years in prison. So since then, I would say it's the only thing he's talking about. He's not talking about corruption, first of all, because he cannot investigate anything from the prison. So he's talking about war, and he even laid out the plan, so-called 15 steps for Russia to end this war and to, how should I say, to reintegrate itself into the international community. This is definitely exists in English, so I will put this link as well.
This comment comes from the lack of emphasis on Ukrainian war, because even though obviously Navalny is against the war, obviously he is against Russian imperialism, I think this comes from the fact that he is focused on Russian destiny and Russian sovereignty, even though, it will definitely suffer the consequences of this war.
Right, and he talks about these consequences and also remind you, Navalny is Russian politician, not Ukrainian, which is the big problem these days with Russian political immigrants. As Russian politicians, I think they should think about Russia and Russians. Think about if they're Russian politicians and if they hope in the future to change Russia to not be...
thinking about future Russia is already thinking about the Ukraine.
Yes.
If we want to keep peace, we already actually recorded a video on that, about why we actually need to think about what's going to happen in Russia, even we care about Ukraine on the first place. So I suggest that, the author of this comment can just come back to this and, see the elaboration probably behind why it's okay for Navalny to think about Russia and to not put Ukraine on the agenda. Even for us, of course, it's the most hurtful topic at the moment. It's just the scope of this country where he is a politician and he has to talk about it. And, no wonder that's his primary agenda.
Yeah. And again, talking about future of Russia is impossible without ending the war and the victory of Ukraine. It's just if the only thing you talk about as Russian politician is victory of Ukraine, some people in Russia might start asking questions like, are you really our representative? Why they should care about him then?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have anything else interesting?
Yes, and we have another question. Another, I would say, frequently brought up question, at least in the discussions I had in the past 14 months, since the war started, because that's why we're doing this. Okay, so we mentioned Germany, one of our videos.
Right.
Oh, the same video where we were talking about Russian future, by the way. And here's the comment. Germany. The German cities were destroyed after the war. The country was separated in 4 occupied territories. Everyone could see the disaster. I think the Germans were not very interested in the Nuremberg trial. They didn't want to talk about the crimes, but they changed because of the threat of the Soviets standing in the GDR. Russia is not destroyed. The war is in Ukraine. Russia should be isolated.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's think about what isolation did to Germany when it was not completely destroyed after the First World War.
Yes.
Right? So especially because Russia is not destroyed, especially because it's not depleted of its resources and military forces, exactly because of this, and because of the support of China and all other isolated states that are dangerous.
Like Iran.
Exactly. Exactly because of that. Because what was mentioned. So it's not the conflicting statements. It's actually the reason and the consequence, because the Russia is still a powerful country. It can it's very dangerous to isolate it.
Yeah.
For the entire world,
Even
Ukraine including.
Yes, and especially Ukraine and other neighboring countries for Russia,
Right.
because where this revisionistic new government, the new Putin, whoever it's gonna be,
Right.
Gonna invade. I guess the only addressing this comment would be like, just read about Germany after Versailles, and that's it.
So what is the safest scenario is that Russia has to change, significantly change. It has to go through, the government has to go through trial. People need to be either released or punished depending on their deeds during this time and their responsibility that we also talked about lately. But isolation is just scary. I mean,
It's not even, if you don't care about Russians, that's fine. But think about anyone else. Again, Russia is a nuclear power, I just might remind you. As we could see in the past 14 months, probably Putin is not gonna, push the red button.
right.
The question though, let's say Putin is gone. It's like 20 years after today. Russia is isolated. War is over. Ukraine in the borders of 1991. But people in Russia are poor, maybe even more poor than now. They feel, the big humiliation, isolation. They could not go anywhere. They will keep boiling in this, atmosphere inside Russia. The only country they could go is Iran, and what they're gonna learn there, what kind of influence they're gonna experience. So let's just imagine that the people are gonna be pissed, poor, and who will armed. So who will be the possible leader who would rise into power in that sort of situation, or the type of government, or the regime? Will it be the regime that is going to be, oh, let's give people, more freedoms, let's, invest into new technologies, and then after this you should say, like, let's connect to the world. But how you can connect to the world does not want,
right. In other words,
connection.
Violence thrives in misery, and isolation for Russia is just a very, first of all, unlikely, second of all, dangerous scenario.
So,
all for now?
Yeah, it's all for now. As you may notice, it's not a lot of comments, but wink wink, it's up to
you should
you.
engage if you have any interest in watching our channel. It's very important for us to engage in a conversation with you, because we're here to talk, not at you, but to you.
Yes. So again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Like this video, show it to your friends, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. And with that, we're gonna leave you till next time. Bye.
Bye.